faces, friends, places. Years and moments half forgotten. Laughs, fears, songs, tears. Memories are made of this. I remember a time, 1921, when a somewhat inexperienced pal of mine got the break of his life. A job on a great national newspaper. But had he chosen the wrong moment? For it was one of those times that are a trifle severe on the editor's temper and his blood pressure. One of those times when, well, from a news point of view, little happened. Except probably a small earthquake in Chile with not many dead. In 1921, this pal of mine was fresh from a local country newspaper. In that kind of journalism, story material was not all that hard to come by. Weddings, funerals, jumble sales, and garden parties, for the most part. Light but human stuff. The color of the bride's eyes, the groom's buttonhole, and bridesmaid Susie Smith as pretty as a picture. Well, after all, her father is the mayor. Carnivals, fetes, then, of course, there was always the county. The county always wanted to read about itself. You only gave me 3 lines last week, young man. Sorry, Squire, but there was the badger hunt over at Barchester. And if ever you were at a loss to fill space, there was always the Camera Club. A most beautiful exposure by Miss Amelia Jones. Most commendable. Besides, always free sandwiches going at the club's expeditions. But on a big national, well, different. You know, different kind of perspectives. Functions again, but on a grander scale, like King George and Queen Mary and Queen Alexandra unveiling the memorial to the late King Edward VII. Wider perspective, said Charlie, but whether it was a king or a prime minister performing the ceremony, it didn't differ in essentials from, say, the inauguration of the new drinking fountain in Marketplace last year. Not that Charlie meant that you could compare the glories of Eton boating with the kind of regattas he used to cover, where the crews often came to grief in the overflow from the gasworks. But he did maintain that basically there wasn't all that difference between a fashionable match at Lord's and a village cricket game. After all, the rules of play were the same, weren't they? Yes, he had it all worked out. Whatever the subject, it was just a matter of thinking in bigger terms. Not of paragraphs, but of whole pages, if you get what I mean. Take foreign affairs. Well, a novice couldn't be expected to pick up all the threads in a day or so. Take at least a fortnight, he thought. He recalls seeing Lloyd George, Monsieur Briand, and Marshal Foch at Chequers, working out what to say to the Germans who were arriving to discuss war reparations. Sort of like the recompense for smashing Farmer Higgins' greenhouse. Mark you, the Allies were doing a little smashing back on their own, destroying German U-boats and other armaments to make the world safe for greenhouses. And there was quite a sizable British army in Germany keeping an eye on things. The Germans had to be shown that poaching on a big international scale just isn't worth it. Charlie took a trip to Germany, on expenses, of course. Mark you, there were a lot of local politics that he couldn't grasp right away, but he could already make out quite clearly that Hindenburg was important. Well, reading between the lines. When he returned, he wrote quite a piece about the Allied big noises being the magistrates on the bench of Europe, and how the sending of the German delegates back empty-handed was right in view of the offense, and so forth. But all the editor said was, Tubbs, try something nearer home. So for my friend, it was off to all the by-elections. Never much of a story there, though. The government was still the wartime coalition. The rough and tumble of party strife was out for the time being. There was, however, quite a drive in agriculture, which brought Charlie onto home soil, if you get me. Wartime methods to speed up farming, including even high explosives. Housing. Not much of a story there. Just not enough houses. However many mayors might ceremoniously open doors with golden keys, they even had a sort of ballot system. But how you got a house out of it, Charlie couldn't say. And when he tried to explain it, the editor said, Tubbs, go and cover the coal strike. On that he felt quite excited. Biggest industrial story since the war. They had had to call in the Navy in order to try and keep up some sort of supply of coal. But by the time Charlie got there, all there was to report was no change in the general situation. Just sailors still shoveling and miners doing a little surface mining on their own to keep their own home fires burning. There was another angle to the strike, though. You were supposed to stay at home and save transport. But at a football cup final, Charlie found the band being treated somewhat elastically. By the way, he reported back that some Pathe newsreel or other was giving away free favors. How cheap, sneered the editor. But then, of course, he hadn't thought of it himself.